Welcome on into BKL Nightly. This is the Wednesday Monday Night Football edition. Not your normal show on a Wednesday. Myself, Thad Brown, along with Caleb Carr. The Bills don't do any work today. They are going to delay their preps this week by a day. The Monday night schedule is always kind of whatever the Bills want to make of it. This year, they wanted to push everything back a day. So no news from Orchard Park today. We'll have all the normal stuff we'd have on a Wednesday tomorrow on this show. But today what we want to do is take a couple topics and dive a little deeper into them, have a little more of a discussion as opposed to kind of ripping through the news. One of the things we're going to get to later, we're excited about, we're going to rank the AFC. We're going to take all the teams, the non-Buffalo teams, put them into buckets and kind of align them based on what we think they will be relative to the Bills the rest of the year. But let me start with a quick topic because we brought this up and I want to get into this a little bit. We've talked about this Bills schedule as so easy, so inviting, such a red carpet ride potentially to a number one seed. But we were thinking about the way the team will approach this schedule. Caleb, does it hurt that the schedule maybe is so soft that it'll be hard for the Bills to kind of get that juice going with the bigger games? Sure, Kansas City, Philly, there are teams out there, but not that many.
Let me start by saying that if you can't find enough juice to go in and handle business, you probably don't deserve to be a one seed to begin with. But that's besides, I know.
I mean, you're right, but like the discussion here is this is an unusual schedule.
Yes, it is.
You know, does it change? Well, I don't think we should look at it as it's a bad schedule, ergo the Bills are just going to, like totally disregard everybody. But the level is going to go from here down to here somewhere, I would think, right?
Yeah, we've already kind of seen they had no problem with the Jets, but we saw them kind of have their struggles with the Dolphins and the Saints, and then obviously they lose the Patriots. Now the Patriots are a pretty good team, and they showed that, and I think that they will continue to be good. But when you look at the rest of the schedule, like you said, you've got the Chiefs, and you've got the Eagles, and you've got the Patriots again. They'll go back to Highmark, so that one's obviously there's gonna be plenty of juice in that. But you look at some of these other games, like the Falcons and the Panthers off of a bye week, and it's like there are some of these where I think it could be very easy for this team to kind of sleepwalk through the week and into the game. Now, should they do that? Absolutely not. And even if they do sleepwalk, you would hope that they can still beat a team like the Panthers. But when you look at games like this where there seems to be, okay, the Chiefs, and then it's the Dolphins, and then it's the Bucks, and then it's the Texans, Steelers, and Joe Burrow-less Bengals. And it's like all these ups and downs where it's not impossible to think that when they go down, they could get stuck in that valley. The
other part of it, too, is, and we brought this up, playing at night is no longer a thing that gives this team juice because of two reasons. One, they've done a whole lot in recent memory last few seasons, but even this year, this is going to be game 4 of 6 at night. So like playing at night right now for this team is the only way they play, so later on that Thursday game at Houston, whatever, we've done this 4 times already this year. So I think there will be a reduced level. The Bills have always been good at staying even keel, playing every game about the same. And I think they'll still do that. But it is an unusual schedule, at least right now sitting here on paper, in that there doesn't seem to be a lot of spike games to where you really find out what a big game could look like. I don't think it'll be a big deal, but it was an interesting thing we brought up, and I wanted to hit a little bit of it here too. Now, another topic that's been an issue for the Bills last couple games has been penalties. 11 each of the last 2. Obviously, a big contributor to a loss Sunday night against New England. So after the game, talked to a few of the Bills players for sure about penalties and where they go from here in that department.
Limit the penalties, right? That was the biggest thing of this game was his penalties. Both offense, defense, and myself on special teams. You know what I mean? That hurt us a little bit, and we'll clean those up.
We could be a lot more disciplined. Like all those penalties and stuff, they really hurt us. And so I feel like we could nip those in the bud and just move on.
We got to clean it up, We come back tomorrow and we watch the film, and we got to be real with ourselves and get back and play next Monday.
I definitely think that tonight will shine some light on little things that we can get better at, like protecting the ball, penalties, alignment, us with our blocks finishing, not holding. I think all those things kind of play a part in us just kind of recenter and just focus on ourselves and get better with those things.
So, being real with ourselves, the thing that Taylor Rapp said, I thought was a good comment. Okay, this is a problem. We got to address it. Here's the thing. Here's why I want to bring this up. I don't even know if penalties are a problem for the Bills. And I don't mean like they haven't committed a lot and that's not bad. I was doing research to see, what the Bills had done in prior games where they had committed a lot of penalties. And you start going back and you see that the McDermott, good Josh Allen era, this Bills team is pretty penalty prone. For the last 5 years, they have been top 10 in the NFL in penalties. The one year they weren't was the year they played one less game because of Damar Hamlin and what happened in Cincinnati. So essentially they have been a above average penalty team in the bad way every single year of this team being good. Now, I did look back, and if you go to individual games where the Bills committed 10 penalties or more, they're 5-4. And I don't know what the Bills' record is over the last 5 years in total. I know it's way better than 5-4. So certainly when they commit 10 penalties or more, there's been an effect on the field. But in general, no one seems to care that they commit a lot of penalties because nobody's talked about it because they win division titles and playoff games every year. Not Super Bowls, but playoff games. So is penalties a real big problem for this team?
So, quick question: your 10 or more penalties, 5-4, is that also over the past
same span? So 2020. So they don't do it a lot.
That's 9 games over the past 4. We've seen it. Is it back to back? Did they have 10 or more in both of the last 2 games, or do they only have 9 against the Patriots?
In the last 2 games, they've had 11. 11 against New England, 11 against New Orleans.
So now that's back to back 10 games.
Yes.
So I agree that up until this point, we've seen that they can have a lot of penalties. They can have 8, 7, 8, 9, 10 even, and still win games. And when they hit that 10 mark, they're 5-4, which isn't very good. My concern is they've now had over that 10 mark in back-to-back games, and they've only played 5 games this season. So it almost seems like it's maybe starting to ramp up. And if it continues to ramp up and they are like the top team and not just top 5 or top 10, that could very well become a problem. Now, I think that they will clean it up. I think that they will, learn from the mistakes. And again, it was 2 sloppy games, a game against the Saints that you can have 11 penalties and still win, and then a game against the Patriots where they're going to make you pay for it. And if you play another team where they go out to make you pay for it, like the Chiefs will, you're probably going to lose that game. But I think by that point, you got a bye week coming up. I think they'll start to clean it up. But my concern is if they continue to get at or near that 10 mark, that's when it really could become a problem.
I agree with you. I think that the last 2 games by themselves are a concern.
Yes.
I think the Bills, when you look at the numbers and it says that the Bills are generally penalty prone, more so than most teams. Because they're still succeeding, I think that's another underline of why Josh Allen's so ridiculously good. That the Bills can be this team and this guy at quarterback, and there are other pieces too, but primarily this guy at quarterback, because if you go 2020 to now, that's the only real consistent factor, him and Sean McDermott. Mm-hmm. The offensive line has changed, the weapons have changed, the pieces on defense have largely changed. There's been a couple guys, Deion Dawkins, Matt Milano, guys for the whole time. But for the most part, it's just Josh and Sean. So it reminds us how good Josh Allen has, definitely, and maybe has had to have been for the Bills to succeed while they're committing all these penalties. Now, does that mean that the Bills should address this? I don't really, I land in the camp of, 10 or more is bad. But in general, I don't care. I don't, because this team has been good without him. Yeah. We don't talk about it. It's never been. There hasn't been a playoff game where we've been like, wow, they committed 15 penalties. That's why the Chiefs beat them. The Chiefs beat them because Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid have been better year after year after year. Chris Jones, whoever. It's not penalties. So as long as the Bills aren't going to do another run of 10 or 11, in one game, I don't care. I really don't. I don't think it's a problem. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to ask guys questions about it. As long as they stay below the ridiculous level, I'm totally good with where they're at penalty-wise.
So I agree with you in that sense that when you look at the larger picture of the past few seasons, they've continued to dominate. Josh Allen, I like what you said, how good Josh Allen has had to be, and I do think that sometimes those higher penalty games make him have to be even better, because now you're in 1st and 20 situations, and Josh Allen has to make a Josh Allen type play. But I agree that right now it's not a concern. I think it's kind of getting blown out of the water of, oh my gosh, penalties. And we've even on the show talked about it a little bit, and we talked about it a little bit after the Patriots and the Saints game, how, oh wow, this is up there. Now that's also because we don't have a ton else to talk about because they're not playing that bad. But aside from that, I agree with you that right now it's not a problem, but I think the fact that we've had 2 back-to-back games at least makes me put it in my pocket. At least makes me say, okay, I'm gonna set this aside and I'm going to keep that over here for now, because if it happens again against the Falcons and then they have a bye week and it happens again against Carolina, then I'm really, especially, honestly, I don't care what they do after the bye week against the Falcons. If they go into that bye week and then come out and have 10, 11, 12 penalties against the Panthers and make that a close game, that's when I'm going to grab it and be like, okay, now it's a problem. But it's not a problem yet, but I'm definitely thinking about it a little bit more than I normally would.
I hear you on that. I'm going to stay in the camp of, I'm with you that the last two are at least something to note. I'll put the line at like 16 in the next two games. If Atlanta and Carolina total less than 16, I don't care. If it's 7 and 8
total, total doesn't. Yeah, total's okay.
So if it's 7 now, if it's 12 and 4, then the 12 is bad. Whatever. Yes. But the point is, you have to really get to a level of like red alert penalty concern before I care, after seeing what the Bills have done historically and the way they've overcome this before. Generally, the thing I've always believed is that penalties are the result of a lesser talented player trying to keep up with a more talented player. The Bills, as good as they've been outside of Josh Allen, should have a good group of more talented players to not commit penalties. Now, maybe Josh Allen is masking all that. And we've talked a lot about they don't have great players. They usually have pretty good players top to bottom, though, to where if you're doing a one-on-one matchup, in most games, most Bills players should be the better guy. So I don't have a good explanation why the penalties are happening. But like I said, I'm not even trying to find one because I don't care unless it becomes a bigger problem than where it's at right now.
I agree.
All right. Next thing we want to talk about, the NFL trade deadline, a month away. It's November 4th, a little less than a month away. But we've now seen 5 games of the Bills. We've seen 5 games of other teams too, to kind of get an idea not only what the Bills might need, but maybe what else might be available. I think we both agree this Bills team, as it stands, we're not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, schedule the parade, the Bills are going to be fine. What do you think is the type of trade, whether it be player or position, that the Bills should most be looking at when we get to early November?
This one was tough for me because I immediately went to like an edge or a D-line player. Like I immediately went to somebody that can stand up and stop the run. But I fade away from that just because Ed Oliver will be coming back. And also, when you pay Joey Bosa the kind of money that you paid him, you need to give him more than 5 weeks to figure it out. And we've seen some bright spots from him. It isn't like he's just been bad. So I went instead with the first one, cornerback. Trey White. Christian Benford had a bad game, but that's just one bad game. I'm not too concerned about him yet. We talked about him a little bit earlier in the week. Trey White's starting to become a problem for me. He's starting to become a concern. And then when you've got a rookie in Dorian Strong who was playing good and was showing some potential, now potentially could be out for an extended period of time with a neck injury. And then you have a big question mark in Maxwell Hairston because we don't know what he is. We don't know who he can be. We just saw him like for a week and a half in training camp, and that's it. So for me, it's cornerback. I kind of jotted down a couple names. Greg Newsome with the Browns. He's been struggling a little bit, but he's a very good player, and we know what new situation how a new place can kind of change somebody a little bit. In theory. So maybe that could be something there. And the Browns aren't looking to be anything this year. So you would think that they would be on the market. Another one is, I don't love this one as much, but Rasul Douglas is on the Dolphins right now. He knows the defense.
I think a few Bills fans just got the chills. Like some people might have like just had to stop the stream. Wait, what? Rasul Douglas coming back? I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but I think most Bills fans have moved on.
Yes.
And satisfactorily so too.
I agree that he wasn't anything crazy. He wasn't great, but I'm not
saying Bills fans are right. I'm just saying
no.
The fan reaction to that name is going to be the way I describe it.
I agree, but I think the fact that he knows the system already could help, and that's kind of a lesser one. Another one that I would absolutely love to see, but I don't think would be happen is a bad team in the Carolina Panthers trading away a guy like a JC Horn. Now, I don't think that would ever happen, but that's one that I'm like, oh, that would be a great situation. But I think my main one is Greg Newsome. And then I also was thinking wide receiver, just because, you look at this core and it's just, I want to give it more time, but the more time I give it, the more concerned I become. I don't have any names in that one, though. I don't even know what teams would be willing to trade away their guy. All
right, so I was with you for the most part. I think position-wise, my number one spot is corner.
Yes.
Now, the knee-jerk feeling is always add something on offense because it's fun and shiny, And where would the Bills need something on offense? Well, the shiniest position of them all at wide receiver. The thing is, now there are names at wide receiver I'm going to bring up to you in a minute here, but no matter who you bring in, you're not moving Shakir or Keon Coleman or Josh Palmer out of their spots.
Exactly.
Right? And then Tyrell Shavers, who's on a lot of special teams, is probably similarly locked. So really we're talking about taking Curtis Samuel or Elijah Moore. You could release Elijah Moore. I'm not saying he's that bad, but in theory you could do it. It wouldn't kill the season. But that's the spot you're trying to replace. So I don't want to dismiss the idea of receiver, and I'll throw a couple names out here in a minute. But Carl Jones, when we talk about this, always goes back to the idea that in the playoffs, it's the defense that lets this team down. So if you want to add something, don't add a receiver to the offense that, they scored 20 against New England, but they're going to put up 30 against a lot of teams, even in the playoffs. Add something on defense, and I think the number one spot is corner. You can go edge rusher because I know they gave Joey Bosa a lot of money. You can't have too many edge rushers, so you want to bring somebody else in. I'm fine with that. And when it comes to corner, Greg Newsome is my guy. I don't know if I have anybody else outside of that. I will bring up a couple names of receiver that I want to throw at you here. This is kind of the pie in the sky one because his contract is out of this world. But Calvin Ridley from the Titans, not only a guy who's been a pseudo number one, but a guy who can be a field stretcher. He has I think he had 3 40-yard catches over the weekend, something like that. So not only do you take a guy who's got ridiculous talent, but he can add a dimension you don't have. But like I said, he's scheduled to make $20 million next year. I don't think the Bills want to add that right now.
And also with him, I don't see Tennessee from a quarterback development standpoint. I don't see them wanting to get rid of one of their most reliable targets when you're looking at. I agree that he might not be their long-term option, but when you got Cam Ward back there, I don't see them being that willing to get rid of him.
They do have Eli Manor, who's been a really good rookie. But yeah, I thought of that too.
But again, it's a rookie.
Yeah,
you
right.
kind of want him to. You kind of want your rookie quarterback to have a veteran safety net there.
Because at Tennessee, they're not really trying to win games. They're trying to develop the quarterback.
Yes.
You need the receiver to do that. I'm with you. How about Trey Tucker from the Raiders? This is a guy on a small contract on a team that doesn't have a young quarterback, a team that's 1-4, and very much a field stretcher.
I don't hate that one.
That's
a good one.
Here's the thing. If you're going to add a receiver, the Bills have been adamant about, we don't want to be feeding a number one guy. And even Amari Cooper last year, they brought him in. He wasn't really going to be that. He was going to be a really good player to add. And it turns out that I think he really got old fast. So I don't think you're going to add that level of player. Trey Tucker, though, let me put it this way. If you're going to add a player to that core, you better add somebody who can fly. Because that's the one thing that this receiving core, in theory, can't do at all. And Trey Tucker could be that guy. And he's on a cheap contract, on a team that has Jacoby Myers. They have Brock Bowers. They have pass catchers, in theory, that are certainly acceptable. And they might be out of it in 3 or 4 weeks. So I think corner is the number one idea for me. But Trey Tucker's a fun thought.
Where would you put him in this lineup, though? Because like you said, when you think of big trade moves, you think you got to go get a guy that's really going to make a big impact. But unfortunately for the Bills in their current situation, they can't go get this number one guy because then you got to bump Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer and Khalil Shakir, like you said, down. And I don't think they want to do that. So where would Trey Tucker fit? Not saying that's not a good one. I'm just generally curious. Where would he fit in the offense? So
I think I got to look and see if he's more of an outside or a slot receiver. I think he's more of an outside receiver. I think he would take snaps away from Josh Palmer, and I think he might bump Keon Coleman inside a little more often. Because Coleman, everybody thinks he's probably better out of the slot. I've seen him run some reps out of the slot I've liked better. So I think Palmer would be the guy who would lose snaps. Maybe Tyrell Shavers too, to a degree. Or whatever the Curtis Samuel snaps are. I think whatever the Curtis Samuel snaps are, he's taking those to begin
immediately,
with. Yeah. And then on top of that, you might be able to get a couple Josh Palmer snaps out of there too, as a guy who can, again, stretch the field.
Yeah.
All right, like we said, November 4th is the trade deadline. So we will see. I assume the Bills are going to add something. We'll see what it'll be. All right, we've been looking forward to this. What we're going to do right now is rank the AFC, okay? It's not 1 through 15, and it's also not including the Bills. So the Bills will not be involved. This is just looking around the rest of the AFC, what we think. We put the teams into 4 buckets. and we'll go one at a time here through the groups and kind of assess who we think is in the group, maybe, who's better and worse within the group if you want a little bit. But so the first one we're going to start with is just the teams that are absolutely no threat. Their seasons are over. The Bills should not care about them at all. Maybe they come up with some ridiculous run later and get into contention, but these are teams that have no absolute worry that they're causing the Buffalo Bills. I'll let you go first. We're not going to talk about these too long. Just give me your list.
I got 5. I'm going to go the Tennessee Titans, the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Cleveland Browns, sorry, Rachel, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are my 5. Absolutely no threat. I see no reason why they're even going to be sniffing the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on 4 or 5. Okay. I had Cincinnati in this instead of the Raiders. So I just think
you have Cincinnati in
yes,
it. Ooh.
Their quarterback situation.
We're gonna have a conversation later.
And their offensive line is so bad. They are absolutely zero concern.
Okay.
Because Joe Burrow, I don't think is going to play this year at all. So okay. I don't. And look, the division they play in, even the Browns are a pain in the neck for them because the Browns defense is that good. So from the Bills' point of view, Cincinnati is zero threat. All right. Next category. This is kind of the one we labeled the most creatively. So these are teams that we think are not going to make the playoffs, but it's kind of a hot take that might get thrown on our face later on this season. I'm going to go first here. Okay. I only had 3 in this bucket. Okay. Chargers. Not going to the playoffs.
Wow.
Jacksonville, not going to the playoffs. And I had the Raiders in this one. And
you have the Raiders in that one? Okay.
Now, the Raiders are the easiest. These are the Raiders are the coldest of the hot takes. Mm-hmm. But here's my thing. With the Chargers, their offensive line is so beat up. I know it's Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. But you've seen what happens to them when they cannot use that offensive line as a weapon. They just really have not been good in the last couple of weeks. Rashawn Slater's not coming back at all this year. Joe Alt might be back, but for a month and a half. But by then, especially in that division they got to play in, I think they'll be 4-7, and it won't matter. So I've got the Chargers out of the playoffs. The Jags one is simple, and I know they just beat the Chiefs. They have 14 forced turnovers this year. How did they beat that Kansas City team on Monday night? It all came down to a pick 6 at the goal line, which, look, it was a good defensive play. It wasn't lucky. But at some point, they're on pace right now to force, what would it be? Literally 40-something turnovers. That does not happen in the NFL.
No.
So that number is going to dial back. Now, do they miss the playoffs? I might be reaching a little there. But I don't trust Trevor Lawrence in a big spot. I think they're kind of messy on offense. The defense is good, but I don't think Jacksonville goes to the playoffs.
All right. So I'm going to start with the Houston Texans.
Okay.
I have the Houston Texans and I have the Baltimore Ravens.
All right.
As my hot take, no playoffs. For the Ravens, I think they're just so banged up and I think they're just so behind the 8 ball right now already that I could see them just completely missing. Even if everyone comes back healthy, there are still some games on their schedule that they could definitely lose this coming up week at the Rams, or I believe it's this week at the Rams. That's one that they could definitely lose. They could easily fall to 1-5. And I don't remember their exact schedule, but I went down and looked at it, and they have quite a few that are they could lose that even with Lamar. Just thinking that if they're already 2-6 or something, or 3-7, you're looking at they definitely could be in a spot where they're already out pretty early. And then for the Texans, again, the same thing. I think they're behind the 8 ball with the Colts and the Jaguars. I think the Colts and the Jags are off to such a hot start that I don't think, with the way that CJ Stroud has been playing and the way that this team the defense looks good, but the offense hasn't really been clicking yet for the Texans. And I think that the way that the Colts and Jags are playing, they're just not going to be able to catch up. So those are my 2 hot take no playoff teams.
So Baltimore, I'm going to fight you hard on Baltimore.
Okay.
Yes, the Rams, they can lose. They're 1-5. After that, Bears, Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, Jets, Bengals. So they can easily be 7-5.
Are they going to be healthy though?
Does it matter?
I think so.
If Lamar Jackson's playing in those 6 games,
I think it matters if the defense is healthy, yes.
Who is beating Baltimore if Lamar Jackson plays among Chicago, Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, Jets, Cincinnati?
Say that one more time.
Chicago, Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, Jets, Cincinnati.
I think Cleveland could sneak one. I think I'm serious. I think Cleveland could sneak one.
I know they could, but like
I think Minnesota could sneak one if they're healthy. I think the Bears could sneak one
with
possibly.
JJ McCarthy.
With JJ McCarthy. I'm telling you, if the defense isn't good, I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson coming back in. I'm worried about this defense looking incredibly banged up to the point where I think even JJ McCarthy could put up points on them. Yes,
that's way more.
Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze.
That's way more a Baltimore take than an opponent's take. All right.
Hey, we labeled it hot take, no playoffs for a reason.
All right. We're running a little late on time here. Okay. The next one is teams that are going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they knock the Bills out of the playoffs. In the playoffs, give me your group there.
This is where I have the Bengals. I think the Bengals will figure it out. I think Joe Flacco's good enough to do something there. And if Joe Burrow is able to come back for the last couple games, if he does, I think he'll help push that. So I have the Bengals sneaking in, but not being a threat. And then I have the Colts, the Jags. You kind of talked about the Jags. I think they're just so far ahead right now where they'll make it, but I don't think they're going to be anything crazy. And then I have the Steelers and the Broncos. Steelers just because the rest of that division is kind of I mean, I have the Ravens not making it. Someone has to make it from that division. Yes. So I have the Steelers there. And then I have the Broncos because I think they're good, but the Bills whooped up on them last year in the playoffs, and I see no real reason why they shouldn't again if they have to face them this year.
So I put Houston, Pittsburgh, and Indy in this group, and I think we both had Pittsburgh and Indy, right?
Yes.
Yep. Houston I have in. I think the defense is good enough for them to still be a threat, and I don't buy the Jags as I pointed out, so that's why I put them there. I have New England in this spot, but if they make a trade for another nice piece, somebody in the middle of their defense, or maybe another really good weapon, Alvin Kamara, for example, then I might bump them up to the next category. But for now, I've got them in the playoffs, but I don't think they knock the Bills out in the postseason. Fair?
I think that is very fair, yeah.
All right. Final category. Could end the Bills season. Teams that we think in the AFC could knock Buffalo out in the playoffs. I have Denver. And look, I almost didn't put them in this for all the things you said. I don't feel like Bo Nix is good enough, but I think the defense, and look, they're 3-2. They should be 4-1. They lost to the Colts on a stupid field goal penalty that had nothing to do with nothing. So they should be 4-1. They just beat Philly. I think they can beat the Bills in the playoffs.
To your point, the Broncos are the highest in my in my bottom category. They are the highest up, so yes.
So Denver, Kansas City, who, look, I know they're 2-3, but I'll tell you what.
It's always a threat.
Losing Monday night, I was more impressed with the Chiefs than the Jags. Not that the Jags played well. The Chiefs' offense is trending up.
Yes.
And they get Rashee Rice back.
Yes.
And if they get in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes having stuff, you don't want to see them on the other side. The last team I have, you're going to go nuts. Baltimore Ravens. If they are healthy and get to the playoffs, they can knock Buffalo out.
You're right. If they are healthy, and I agree with what you're saying. I don't think they make it to the playoffs. I don't think they get to that point. I agree that if they sneak in, it's scary, but I just don't think they're able to sneak in.
Give me your real threats.
So my real threats are the Chiefs, just like you said. I put the Patriots in that category.
Not unreasonable.
You had them down there. I just think, I agree with what you said. I didn't even think about that, like making a big trade. But the reason mine is Drake May is on the up. He is really trending up. And I think that by the end of the season, come playoff time, he could be a bigger threat than he already seems to be. And then for the final one, I have the Chargers. Where did you have them in?
I had them hot take, not making the playoffs.
You had them in your hot take. I have them as a threat. I think they're still very good. I think Justin Herbert is really good. I think this offense is starting to click. I think the rookie running back just went out, but obviously he'll be back in time for that. And I think the defense is starting to show some stuff that they haven't really shown in the past years. And I think that they will be full go come playoff time. So those are my three: the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the New England Patriots.
The one thing about the Chargers too that kind of kept them lower for me is the Chargers. And like Charger things are already happening.
That's a good point.
You know, they're getting injuries, important guys are already getting knocked out. Marion Hampton's out, Lyman are out. This is what the Chargers do.
It is.
But 3 weeks ago, I would put them in the top category right with you. All right, that was fun. We are back in tomorrow with all kinds of Bills news from Orchard Park. For Caleb Carr, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching BKL Nightly. We will see you again tomorrow.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.